from Dirty Dancing, The Time of My Life. BBC Radio Newcastle. It's the sound of the Northeast on Sunday. A 23-hour Sunday today. 23-hour party people, you and I. We'll be all right. We'll get through it, and then we'll bounce back. It'll be okay. It'll be okay. Right, Taylor Swift to play in a bit. The Tramps as well. Special guest today is Northeast YouTuber Jack the Jobber. You may know him from Cultaholic. And he is planning something away from the world of YouTube for a very special cause close to his heart, and he's here to talk to us all about it. How you doing, Jack?
Hello, Tom. I'm not too bad. How are you?
It's lovely to see you in a slightly different work capacity. You are... Now, people who watch Cultaholic, they know that you're a big wrestling fan, because it's a wrestling-based YouTube channel. They may not know that you're one for your walks as well, aren't you?
Yes, but it's only a recent development in life. I got into walking a long way over lockdown when there was nothing to do, and then that grew into, over the past year or two, multi-day walks where I've walked for, say, 3 days, stopping in between, obviously. But
I was going to say, yeah.
I'd go to, like, Bishop Auckland and walk back to Newcastle, or up to Amble and walk back from there. But yes, now I've planned something a little bit bigger.
So to go back to the start of these walks, what was the first long multi-day walk that you did, and how did you feel after?
That was the Bishop Auckland one, and I was wrecked. I remember getting back to, because it was from the south upwards, obviously, and I live in Newcastle. I got to the quayside and stopped off at the Tyne Bar for the most delicious pint I've ever had in my life. And at the start, it was just something to keep me active during lockdown, but that would just be like longer walks over the course of one day. Then it grew into a bigger thing as restrictions lifted.
So like you say, this is the most ambitious one of all. Yes. Jack, tell us about the walk that you're embarking on.
I'm walking from the west coast of England across to the east, back here really. I wanted to end it in South Shields, but I'm starting in a town that I'd never previously heard of called Silloth in Cumbria, and then over the course of, at the level I'm at in terms of my walking experience, I'm not just jumped into this because I don't want to, burn out halfway through and not be able to complete it. So I've been quite sensible with the structure of it, and at the level of walking that I'm at, given how much I can do per day, I'm looking to do it in about a week and a half.
Right.
And that is starting in the second week of April.
Now, you're doing this for a very important cause. Tell us about the charity and why you've chosen this charity.
I'm doing it for the National Autistic Society, which has always been a charity close to my heart because my younger brother, Tom, he's not you, he's also called Tom.
Okay, right. Saves confusion.
Yes. He's got autism. He always has throughout our lives, obviously. And we were lucky in that he got a diagnosis when he was very young. So we've always known about his autism, and we've always been able to have a greater understanding of his needs and everything. But autism is such a wide spectrum that various different people, you can meet someone and just have no idea that they were on the autistic spectrum. Some people have different requirements compared to others, wildly different. The form of autism I see most represented in the media throughout my life really has been Asperger's syndrome. That's like the most quote-unquote famous form of autism. But my brother's form of autism, for example, is massively different to that. His has more in common, I'd say, with just other learning difficulties. And it means that it's often a misunderstood disability, which is often catered to wrong, I suppose, or understood wrong. So I've always found the National Autistic Society a very important charity, not just for fundraising, but also for spreading awareness as well about what is a broad and ever-changing disability.
We're going to get deep into the planned charity walk that you're doing after Taylor Swift and Anti-Hero on BBC Radio Newcastle.
I have a hero.
Taylor Swift and Anti-Hero on BBC Radio Newcastle. It's the sound of the Northeast for Sunday. Last Sunday in March. Summertime officially here today. Whilst we've lost an hour, we've gained a summertime, and we are celebrating that summertime with a few scattered showers and a touch of cloud. Yay! That's how we do it. After 12 today, they're celebrating the return of my 4-week hiatus from BBC Radio Newcastle Sundays with a bit of 30-second theatre. We're recreating a movie in 30 seconds. Let's see how well you are into your movies. Are you a major movie buff in the Northeast? It's quite easy today, just a heads up. We'll play after 12 though. on BBC Radio Newcastle. A little round of 30-second theatre for your weekend. Meanwhile, I'm in conversation today with YouTuber from the Northeast, Jack the Jobber from Cultaholic. Now, Jack is embarking on an incredible walk from coast to coast, raising money for the National Autistic Society. Jack is with us today talking all about it. Jack, how are you getting ready for the biggest charity walk that you've ever been on?
Bought some new shoes recently.
That's a good start.
I splashed out more than I was.
Can we see the
wondering.
shoes?
Yeah,
they're fabulous.
You can see the shoes there.
For the purposes of radio, they are black and blue shoes.
New Balance there.
New Balance. There are other
New
shoes
Balance.
available.
Yes, but no, I've been. The last one I did in preparation for this was from Middlesbrough back to Newcastle, and I went Middlesbrough to Hartlepool to Sunderland to Newcastle. And I got back to Newcastle and I realised I'd visited the football stadium in every town so far. I thought, I can't finish yet, I have to walk to St James's Park, so I did it. But by the end of that was quite an intense one. That was 4 days. And my thinking was that this is going to be the last big walk I do before the coast to coast one. I want it to be harder than any stretch of days I'll experience in the coast to coast. So I pushed myself harder than I possibly will be this time. It's just that this one's taking longer. So I've tried to be quite sensible about the effort or the workload I'm taking on.
So when you come to planning that route across the country, are there any particular areas that you're slightly more concerned about taking on than others?
Luckily for me, there is not, like when I'm not crossing the Pennines or anything, so there's no areas of great elevation, but a few days in the middle, I've kind of separated it into 4 stages in my head. The first one is from the coast to Cumbria. The middle 2 stages are then across the middle of England, and then the final bit is the last bit where I get through sort of Wylam, Newcastle, and then to the coast. Those middle 2 stages are the ones I'm least familiar with, I suppose, in terms of they're the most rural, definitely. A lot of it I'll be seeing Hadrian's Wall and the path associated with that, so presumably I'll be seeing a lot of walkers as well because it's a very popular path, but those are the ones I'm most not too nervous but maybe slightly apprehensive for, just because it's quite rural and the stretches between towns get bigger, I suppose.
Jack King is going from coast to coast raising money for the National Autistic Society, and there's going to be people listening today who are in awe of the walk that you're going to take, and I know they would love to support you, so tell people listening to BBC Radio Newcastle how they can support you.
Absolutely, I've set up a Just Giving page. If you search Jack's Coast to Coast Walk or Jack King's Coast to Coast Walk for the National Autistic Society. I'm also on Twitter at Jack the Jobber, and currently it is my pinned tweet, so you'll be able to find a direct link there as well.
You said about how much you enjoyed that pint when you got to the end of your walk. Think how incredible that pint is going to taste at the end of your week-long odyssey, from one side of the country to the other.
Or maybe an ice cream, because I'll be in South Shields.
I mean, there is ice cream in South Shields as well. Jack from Cultaholic, Coast to Coast Walk, best of luck, and thanks for being on BBC Radio Newcastle today.
Thank you for having me.
BBC Radio Newcastle.